of the podcasts I do is something called The Real Story, where I talk about what's going on behind the headlines and give people an idea of what's really happening. And not long ago, I did a real story on a case that really had me upset. A high school senior in New York, Sabrina, was told she couldn't paint a Bible verse on her own parking spot. Now, this was a tradition at the school. They had a senior day, and seniors had assigned parking spots, and they could do whatever they wanted. They could, as long as it wasn't, something horrible or offensive or whatever, they could paint and decorate their parking spot. And this story stirred something in me because, as you know, freedom of religion is at the very heart of the First Amendment. So take a look at a clip from that real story so you can see exactly why this hit a real nerve with me. This is what she submitted. And here are the verses. John 14:6, God is the way, the truth, the light. No one comes to the Father except through me. Were you offended by me reading that? And then here's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. This is not about being offended. This is about hating the fact that so many people believe in God and let faith guide their lives. Look, you guys on the left, the gap is widening. The reason you're not making any headway in getting a foothold is because you're not reading the room. You're not reading the country. You can't cancel God. Ain't gonna happen. He was here before you. He's here while you're here. He will be here after you. There is nowhere in the Constitution where it says separation of church and state. That's an interpretation. Find it. If you can find that in the Constitution, make a copy and send it to me, please. Seriously, you would think after national headlines and public outcry, schools would get it right. But just months later in Colorado, almost the identical thing happened to another student. Another case about a young woman's right to express her faith, another legal battle, and another moment for all of us to ask, where are we drawing the line between protecting religious identity and outright censorship? Well, tonight we're going to dig into both stories. Hear from Sabrina herself as she joins us remotely and talk in studio with her senior counsel for First Liberty, Keisha Russell, about what these cases mean for students, parents, and schools across America. Sabrina is joining us virtually, and Keisha is in the studio. Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here in studio. Sabrina, when you first proposed to do this, you weren't going around getting other students to participate in what you were doing. This was just you doing what you wanted to do in your space, correct?
Yeah.
And you have to submit this ahead of time to the school, and they have to sign off on it, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened? What did they say when you submitted your original design?
When I submitted the original design, they called me into the office the next day and told me that I had to switch it up because I wasn't allowed to have a Bible verse or crosses or any symbols of religion on my parking spot. So I was really confused, but they told me that I could put a cross in there, but it just can't look like a cross. So I had to make it look like a T instead.
But did they say why? Did they say what was the reason? What was the rationale for telling you can't do it?
Just because it was against their school regulations, I guess, is what their reasoning was, and because it might offend other people.
And did they say what that regulation was? Did they cite some policy? Did they send you to a policy manual, something that said you can't express your personal beliefs in some way?
No, they didn't show me anything.
Did you change your design at all?
Yeah, so when they told me that I had to change it, I was like, I told them like, well, I talked to people and like they said that this is legal and they were like, no, this is not legal, whatever. So then I decided to change it a little bit and that's when I did the one with the his will, his way, my life. And then they also said that one wasn't allowed. So that's when I kind of got a little upset and brought it to my mom about it.
I find this astounding. I just find it. And so you came up with a third design that removed all Bible verses and kept only He is King, right?
Yeah.
And how did that one play?
They said that one was allowed after finally like the third one, they said that one was allowed, but I didn't want that one because it didn't really have anything biblical in it. So that's when I wanted to make more moves.
What did they say about satanic symbols? I read you were saying that they allowed that, that that would be, they would have to then require allowing satanic symbols.
Yeah. So they told me that if they allowed Bible verses and any form of like religious things, and then they would also have to allow putting a satanic symbol on a parking spot, which I was kind of caught off guard about, but
Well, that's a jump. I'd be caught off guard about that as well. That's a leap of logic. That makes no sense to me at all. Did you have a response to that for them? Did you say anything back to them about that?
I was just kind of like shaken and confused. I kind of was just like, okay, like maybe if I change it, like this was the very first time that they told me no to the parking spot. So I kind of expected them to say no, but then they kind of went and said that too. So I was just like, okay, like whatever, I'll just change it. Like as long as I can put a Bible verse or something, then I didn't really like wasn't too stressed.
So, Keisha, what do you make of that when they're equating love of God with some kind of equity with satanic symbols and love with danger? Well, I don't explain this to me. What's their logic?
This is actually pretty common when we represent students who want to start Christian clubs on campus. Now, there's not just the Constitution, but a federal law called the Equal Access Act that allows students to start religious clubs. But this is always, a lot of times, this is what the schools say. Well, if we allow that, then we have to allow any other kind of club. We have to allow a satanic club, or we have to allow a Muslim club, or we have to allow a Hindu club. And to which I say, well, the First Amendment does apply to everyone. And so it's a very similar argument that you're hearing is that because the school wants to censor certain speech, they're choosing to say, okay, well, if it's religious, we're just going to discount it altogether, even though that's a violation of the student's private religious expression.
But this is moral inversion, right? I mean, they're trying to find something extreme and offensive to equate to a student's religious belief and their freedom to express that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not really that uncommon either. I do think that whenever I represent Christian students, a lot of times the districts are saying, well, this is divisive, or not everyone believes that, or, this isn't really something we want to promote. And what happened to Sabrina is not uncommon, even though people like yourself are completely outraged by it. It happens more frequently than I think people realize.
Yeah, there have been a lot of cases about this over the years. A lot of them have made their way to the Supreme Court. And I'm really interested in the strength and courage and battle that a 17-year-old young woman like Sabrina had to call upon. And I'm curious about what Sabrina faced with fellow students and all. And that's my next question. If you've been told you have type 2 diabetes, chances are you were also told this is something you're just going to have to manage for the rest of your life. Take this medication, then add another one, and eventually another. Because once type 2 diabetes starts, it often leads to more and more health issues. But here's the truth. You're not getting the whole story. I've been learning more about type 2 diabetes and how it actually develops and why. For many people, it can be reversed, not just managed, not just medicated, but addressed at the root. That's why I want you to know about Diabetes Reversal Group. This team, led by Dr. Jeffrey Hawkins, has the only patented system in the world that actually reverses type 2 diabetes. If you're serious about changing your future, learn more about reversing diabetes at drphildiabetes.com. That's drphildiabetes.com. There is a part of the progressive left that is so anti-God, anti-religion, it has convinced itself that the First Amendment is freedom from religion, not freedom of religion. Now listen to these recent headlines. High school banned student from painting Bible verse in personal parking spot. High school senior wins battle to have Bible verse religious messaging on her parking space. I was shocked. Grand Island School District reverses decision, allows students religious parking design. Notice how none of these headlines are from major networks. That's because they don't cover stories like this. Sabrina, at 17 on senior day, was wanting to express her love of God, her belief, and share that by following a tradition at their school of decorating her parking space, and got a lot of pushback and wound up turning to legal help. And you guys sent a letter, and the letter was very pointed, right? What did the letter say?
Well, it essentially said that the school district was violating both the free speech clause and the free exercise clause by preventing Sabrina from putting what she wanted on her parking space when all the other students could pick what they want. You know, the government is not allowed to discriminate against religious messages when it allows private secular messages, which is exactly what was going on here. All the other students could write what they wanted, except Sabrina, because she wanted to say something religious.
Yeah, and so First Liberty Institute, which does just this nationwide, pushed back on them, and at some point after that, they moved their position, Sabrina, and allowed you to do what you originally wanted to do, correct?
Yeah.
And were you at all worried about how this would play in school with friends, how people saw you, your reputation? I know that, did you start the Bible club there, or are you just a member of it?
Yeah, so I started the Bible club. So this wasn't really anything new to me. Like, I was kind of expecting something to happen.
And how did other students react to this? Did they tease you about it, give you grief about it? Were those that aren't overtly religious have comments about it? What happened when you did all of this?
Surprisingly enough, a lot of students came up to me like during school and asked me about it. And they told me that like they agreed with me. A lot of students even agreed with me and told me that they should have let me put what I wanted on the parking spot because it wasn't offensive. So it actually was really comforting to know that other people are out there and just still maybe too scared to also say what's true. But yeah, it was really comforting to know that they also agreed that it should be allowed to put a Bible verse on a parking spot.
Did they tell you this privately, or were they supportive publicly?
Oh, it was all privately. Every single person was putting it private, which was understandable, I guess.
Yeah, so they didn't want to get in the fray, but they would tell you privately, hey, I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you make of that? Do you think people are just afraid to buck authority, to buck those in power?
Yeah, I definitely think kids, especially my age, think that they don't have the power to be able to do stuff like make change in their school. So they just like to, let the other person do it or let someone else deal with it and hope for the best. And I think that needs to change. And people my age need to realize that we have more power than we think we do and that we can always bring change to our schools, no matter our age.
Why is it important to fight back about this? What are the constitutional implications of this? Because I think everybody needs to realize how important it is for young women like Sabrina to stand up for this.
You know, the Constitution is a contract between the people and the government, right? We give the government just enough power to keep us safe, but not enough power to be tyrants over us. And the free speech clause and the free exercise clause are really important because that's where a lot of times the opposition comes from to the government. Sometimes, you know, we're allowed to express what we feel. We're allowed to believe, even if those beliefs conflict with the government. And so it's vitally important that we constantly hold the government to this standard, because if we don't, they will stop honoring it. And we know that because history tells us that. We have to continue to push back. I have a lot of people who ask me, why do you take these cases with parking spaces or teachers having crucifixes at their desk? Like, aren't those just like really small, like insignificant issues? But they're not. That's where freedom is born in your everyday life. So if you aren't free to express yourself and be who you are when you go to work or outside or at the grocery store or whatever it is, if you are getting locked up for preaching the gospel on a corner, then we are not free. And so everything we do every single day is how we are able to walk in our freedom. And people like Sabrina, like Sophia, like Marisol Castro in Connecticut, these people are holding the government to the standard that we all need.
Yeah. Now, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution is really critical. And it reads, in part, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, so it says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What Sabrina was doing was the free exercise thereof.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And Sabrina, you were in a public school, right?
Yes.
Okay, so she's in a public school. This isn't a private business. This wasn't something where they can make up their own rules because it's a private enterprise. This is a public school, and this is her exercise thereof. And this is a free speech issue. It's an expression of religion issue. This is all over the First Amendment.
Right.
And the Establishment Clause, I've written an op-ed about this that's too involved to get into here, but this is not, the government is overstepping when they get in and say, you can't do this, because this has already been dealt with. They're not allowed to make a law to restrict this, and they have already said, you are guaranteed the right to express and exercise freedom here. How is this not a constitutional violation? Let's be honest, the math just isn't adding up lately. Between the grocery store and those skyrocketing insurance premiums, even with steady jobs, more families are relying on high-interest credit cards to cover expenses. If you're a homeowner stuck in that cycle, carrying balances with rates in the 20s or even 30s, it's time to get relief. Right now, mortgage rates are at a 3-year low, and my friends at American Financing are helping homeowners pay off that high interest rate debt at rates in the low 5s. Their salary-based mortgage consultants don't just push loans, they build exit strategies from debt. On average, they're saving their customers $800 a month. Plus, if you start today, you may even delay the next 2 mortgage payments. There are no upfront fees or obligations. To find out how much you can save, America's home for home loans is American Financing. 888-841-1319. That's 888-841-1319 or americanfinancing.net/Phil. How is this not a constitutional violation?
Well, it absolutely is for them to ban Sabrina or even Sophia from private religious expression. And the way the government does this typically is by saying, well, it's an Establishment Clause violation, or because they know they can't get away with that as much anymore because of Coach Kennedy's case, winning at the Supreme Court. And so what they've done now is they've sort of perverted the doctrine of government speech. And so everyone can say anything they want until the government doesn't like it. And then they can say, well, that's actually government speech, so we can control everything you say. Because government speech is not necessarily held to the same standards in the free speech context. The government is allowed to choose what it wants to say. But so this is what we're experiencing now in the legal battle, is that everything becomes government speech when it's obviously private religious expression.
They reversed their position, correct? And you got to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? How did they contact you, and what has been their attitude since then?
So they emailed, I think, my mom or one of the Liberty people about saying that I was allowed to do my very first parking spot drawing, which I was shocked about and really excited. And so moving on from that, like, the school year has been all right. They decided to change. So for Bible clubs now, or any student clubs, we're just not allowed to put posters up in the school anymore. Instead, it has to be online, which I find ironic.
Now you see what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to treat everybody equally. They have to treat the Christians equally too. And so they're like, well, we'll just take away the whole thing so that we don't have to tolerate the Christian speech or the religious speech. We'll just make sure that there aren't any comparators for anyone to point to.
So you can't put up something about a dance or an event or anything at all?
No, supposedly. But here's the thing about this new guideline, right? We know that it was likely, born out of what has happened with Sabrina, which means it was established in hostility. So the guideline itself is likely unconstitutional anyway.
Well, right. It just seems to me like they're overstepping the other direction and trying to create a backlash so people will get upset. Sabrina, I'm so proud of what you did and admire your courage and conviction in doing that. And even students that don't share in your belief, I'm sure that's why they're at least coming to you privately and saying, hey, I may not share your belief, but I share your fight for the right to display your belief so they can display theirs. And you've helped a lot of people in that school and across this country, so I'm glad you did. And I hope you stay that course. And you would think educators would say, look at this student here that's standing up for herself. She's actually not just learning to parrot back the Constitution, but exercising it. I mean, what a great example. Kudos to you for what you're doing. Stay the course, and best of luck to you every step of the way.
Thank you.
I really hope that goes. Next episode of the Dr. Phil Podcast. Sophia, a senior at Rampart High School in Colorado Springs, Colorado, is a Christian student who expresses her faith through artwork. We're going to see if this is actually happening across the country, or if people are learning, hey, this isn't going to be tolerated. If you like what you hear, watch me every day on my new network, Envoy TV. Check out the links in the description for more ways to enjoy Envoy TV.